Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive prehistoric anomaly that completely shatters our understood timeline of human civilization. For a long time, we thought we had the story of human progress totally figured out. We assumed there was this really neat, orderly progression, from wandering tribes to settled farms, and then eventually to complex architecture and religion. But hidden beneath the hills of southeastern Turkey lies a site that literally throws that entire rulebook right out the window. It's a place called Göbekli Tepe, and by the end of our time together today, you're going to see exactly why this single location has forced archaeologists to completely rewrite human history. So picture this, a world way before the Neolithic Revolution. No agriculture, no pottery, no cities. Humans are purely nomadic foragers, just totally focused on daily survival. Could a band of these wandering survivalists actually construct a sprawling megalithic masterpiece? Well, conventional history said, absolutely not. But Göbekli Tepe? It says yes. Which brings us to this staggering number, 11,000. This incredible site dates all the way back to around 9,600 BCE, making it over 11,000 years old. It is so ancient that it sits almost uncomfortably far back on the human timeline. When we usually talk about ancient history, our minds kind of jump to the Romans, the Greeks, or maybe the Egyptians, right? But Göbekli Tepe belongs to a totally different epoch. It is a voice echoing from the absolute, deepest, darkest dawn of human civilization. Section 1. The Hidden Ancient Hill, a discovery that changed everything. For thousands of years, this monumental site sat completely hidden. It was buried beneath a very ordinary-looking, dusty hill near the city of Şanlıurfa in Turkey. Farmers had probably walked over it for generations without giving it a second thought. But then we have our inciting incident. In 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt was surveying the area and he spotted some worked megalithic limestone fragments just scattered across the ground. Now, what might have seemed like simple, ordinary rocks to you or me triggered a massive realization for Schmidt. He started digging and quickly realized these weren't just loose rocks. They were the very tops of enormous, intricately carved ancient pillars that had been intentionally buried beneath the earth. And what Schmidt unearthed was completely unprecedented. Göbekli Tepe is the oldest known monumental religious complex ever discovered anywhere in the world. As excavations continued, they revealed these massive circular stone enclosures that completely redefined antiquity. The academic significance of this honestly cannot be overstated. Finding this was kind of like unearthing a fully functioning smartphone inside a medieval castle. It completely defied the established conventional rules of historical development. And the deeper they dug, the more impossible the site seemed to become. Section 2. The Impossible Stone Builders. Masterpieces without metal, pottery, or farms. The sheer scale of this achievement comes down to a mind-boggling number, 20. As in 20 tons. The builders of Göbekli Tepe carved massive T-shaped limestone pillars out of nearby bedrock. Some of these pillars stood over 5 meters or 16 feet tall, and they weighed up to 20 tons each. So the really crucial point here is this. They had to quarry, carve, transport, and perfectly erect these monumental stones using only stone tools and human muscle. No metal chisels, no beasts of burden to pull carts, they didn't even have the wheel. It was a feat of engineering that makes putting together modern flat pack furniture look like an absolute joke. This immense collective human effort simply should have not been possible for a society of roaming foragers. And they weren't just putting up blank blocks of stone either. The pillars are covered in these incredibly vivid, high-relief carvings of foxes, lions, snakes, wild boars, birds, and gazelles just splashed all across the site. Now, this wasn't merely decorative, it was highly symbolic. These carvings were likely the physical representation of their ancient mythology, their sacred rituals, or their deepest spiritual beliefs. It really shows us that these nomadic people had this rich, complex inner world and a shared cultural narrative that they wanted to immortalize in stone. Right smack in the middle of these huge circular stone enclosures, the builders placed two much larger pillars. They stand tall, facing each other right in the center of the ring. Because of their shape and the exact way they're positioned, a lot of researchers actually believe these central stones are highly stylized anthropomorphic figures, perhaps deities or really powerful ancestral beings presiding over the space. It's this incredibly deliberate, focused design that leads experts today to call Gobekli Tepe the world's very first temple. Section 3. Rewriting Human History. the paradigm shift of civilization. Let's actually look at the timeline here, because the historical gaps are just immense. Göbekli Tepe was built around 9600 BCE. Compare that to Stonehenge, which wasn't built until around 3600 BCE, and the Great Pyramid of Giza, 2600 BCE. That means Göbekli Tepe predates Stonehenge by roughly 6,000 years, and it's older than the Great Pyramids by a staggering 7,000 years. To really put that into perspective, Cleopatra lived closer in time to you and me than she did to the building of the Great Pyramid. And yet, the Great Pyramid was built closer in time to us than it was to the building of Göbekli Tepe. It pushes the horizon of human capability thousands of years deeper into the past than anyone ever thought possible. For decades, the old theory taught this specific order. Farming came first, which created settled villages, and eventually that allowed for the luxury of complex religion. Well, Göbekli Tepe completely reverses this. It suggests the exact opposite, that the desire to gather for spiritual reasons came first, and the massive effort to feed these ancient pilgrims actually drove the invention of agriculture. Think about it. The immense coordination required to build and maintain this temple meant large groups of people needed to be sustained in one place. That necessity may have driven them to invent farming. Religion birthed the city, not the other way around. Section 4. The Great Burial Mystery. An unsolved cold case from 8000 BCE. So after spending untold generations building, expanding, and carving this incredible architectural masterpiece, something truly bizarre happens around 8000 BCE. The site is abandoned. But they don't just leave it to decay. Unlike ancient cities that were destroyed by invading armies or wiped out by earthquakes or floods, Göbekli Tepe was deliberately, painstakingly buried. The builders themselves hauled massive amounts of soil, stone, and debris and completely covered their own sacred temple, basically sealing it away from the world. Why? I mean, why would you intentionally bury your civilization's greatest achievement? Honestly, even today, experts do not have a definitive answer, but there are some really compelling theories. It could have been a radical religious transformation. Maybe the old gods were no longer serving them, so they ritually entombed the old temple. It could have been a broader cultural change, or maybe a desire to protect the sacred space from desecration by outsiders. Or, tying back to our earlier point about the Neolithic Revolution, as these people fully transitioned into farming settlements, maybe their nomadic hunter-gatherer temple simply became obsolete. Whatever the reason was, the effort to bury it was nearly as monumental as the effort to build it. And here is what makes this site so thrilling. This is an actively unfolding mystery. Klaus Schmidt started digging in the 1990s, but even after decades of careful excavation, it is estimated that a vast majority of Göbekli Tepe still remains underground. Radar scans show dozens more of these circular enclosures completely untouched beneath the earth. So after 12,000 years, the Earth is still closely guarding most of this ancient civilization's secrets. We've literally barely scratched the surface of what there is to learn here. Göbekli Tepe stands as the silent, monolithic reminder that ancient humans were capable of profound organization and artistic brilliance long, long before we ever gave them credit for it. It forces us to ask, what else have we gotten wrong about the ancient world? Perhaps this isn't just a monument to the past, but the actual key to understanding the true beginning of us. Definitely something to think about. Keep questioning, and thank you so much for exploring this with me today.